Happy holidays, everyone. Welcome to Invisible Walls, episode 235 here on GameTrailers.com. I'm Shane Satterfield. We are winding down the year. The good news is a couple big games have come out kind of later than all the others. We'll be talking about those today. We'll be talking about the Spike Video Game Awards. Before we get started, I do want to mention our brand new feature Timeline just launched yesterday. And I'm not gloating here or anything, but it is probably the best piece of media we've ever created here on GameTrailers.com. The amount of man-hours, time, and effort that went into this is unprecedented for us. And just a quick synopsis, essentially Timeline is a video that goes through the chronology of a game's story and tries to make sense of it all. The first episode is for The Legend of Zelda. If you haven't heard all the stories by now, there is a whole group of people online who are trying to figure out what the chronology of the story was. Nintendo finally put out a book that was kind of supposed to set things straight. We go through all of that and try to make sense of it all. Really proud of this piece of media. Mike Damiani's not on the show today, but it's one of his shows that he created. He did an amazing job. We also had our team doing CG for it. It's an amazing piece of video in my estimation. So everybody, please check it out. We would love to be able to do more stuff like this, but unfortunately, in a lot of cases like this, when we spend a lot of time on a piece of media, if it doesn't do really well, it's very difficult to rationalize doing it again. It's a lot like what I mentioned with our retrospectives a couple episodes ago. If you guys want to see more of these, you really got to watch them. So please check out Timeline. I will thank you. Mike will thank you. Game Trailers will thank you. Also, 2013 is quickly coming. We only have probably a few more episodes of Invisible Walls in 2012. Thank you very much for your support this year. Next year is going to be a big year for Game Trailers. We're going to be rolling out a lot of brand new shows. We're going to be doing a lot of things differently. Really excited about it. We kind of settled into a groove here on GT. In 2013, we're going to be like a phoenix rising. So make sure you check out the site early next year. We're going to be rolling out a bunch of new shows, a bunch of new stuff. It is going to be a new era for Game Trailers. But right now, we're in the current era, and we have a great group of people here to talk to you about the latest and the greatest in games, not the least of which, Daniel Bloodworth, Patrick Morales, and as always, the great one, Marcus Spear.
What's up?
All right, so let's jump straight into it. First of all, we're going to talk about the Spike Video Game Awards. They are live next Friday, December 7th, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. They announced the nominees for all the awards. Now, just so you guys know how the nominees are chosen and the winners are selected, there is an editorial committee that basically is comprised of all the editors-in-chief of all the various gaming publications, websites, etc. We all submit our nominees. Then they send us a list of the nominees, and then we choose the winners from those. Basically selected by all your favorite game journalists from around the industry. This year, probably the most interesting list of Game of the Year nominees that I've ever seen at the Spike Video Game Awards. 2 what you could be considered indie DLC games in the nominee list. Unprecedented. Lots of big games that came out in 2012 did not make the list for Game of the Year. So here's a quick rundown. Assassin's Creed 3, Mass Effect 3, Journey, The Walking Dead, and Dishonored are the 5 nominees for Game of the Year this year. What strikes you guys most out of that list? Maybe the one that surprises you the most out of all those?
Maybe Dishonored? I don't know that any
More
of them really
than the 2
surprised me.
DLC games.
Yeah, because I feel like those have a lot of buzz around them already. I mean, I think everyone is pretty much high on Journey. But yeah, I think Dishonored is one where, maybe like what we want out of the game isn't as great as what we got, yeah. But I still really like the game a lot. I haven't got to finish it yet, and I want to get back to it. But yeah, I think it's definitely going in a direction I like to see games going. So
yeah. What about you, Patrick? What do you think is the biggest shocker?
I'm not so much shocked as I am pleasantly surprised to see Journey up there. I mean, I hadn't played it yet. I mean to at some point, but I know that it's a good game. I just didn't know it was that good of a game to be even, considered, the best of the year.
Yeah. What about you over there, Marcus?
Well, I got to say, I'm really pleased that Journey's up there because it is one of the games that I've completed this year. So I can talk about it all I bloody want.
Well, it is only about 3 hours long.
Exactly. No, I played it in one playthrough, and it's definitely.
I think it's the best way.
Yeah.
Like, don't break it up. Just play it all in one chunk.
Yeah, it's a beautiful and enchanting game.
I think it's a great way to describe it, enchanting.
It is. It is. And I've actually filmed a piece for GTTV next week where we talk about the things, so I'm not going to give away too much of what I said there. Walking Dead, really, really pleased. One, it's episodic content that is really well written. It's a return of the point and click, and a really good return in my opinion. That's thoroughly deserved. Dishonored, the only real big new franchise of this fall. Bethesda were very brave with Arcane, got it out there. It's a phenomenal game.
And it sounds like it's been selling really well for
Yeah,
them.
because they've just announced it's going to become a franchise, which is fantastic. I mean, we will see one probably on the next gens. Everybody knows how much I like Assassin's Creed 3. And then, honestly, the only one that, just from my personal view, is Mass Effect 3. I don't think it should be on
Which
there.
is so ironic because it's the highest reviewed game of the year.
Well, it's one of the, actually Persona, I think, is the highest reviewed. But I mean,
But that game's
yeah, and I mean,
obviously.
I actually explained this in the next episode of Night Gamer, but I'm viewing it as the trilogy, and I've made the analogy and the decision that Mass Effect 3, while it is its own right, is a very good game. Don't get me wrong, it's still the Return of the Jedi compared to The Empire Strikes Back. That is Mass Effect 2 for me. I would love to, I would like to have seen perhaps one or two other games make that list.
Do you feel like the backlash against Mass Effect 3 is kind of like going out and having a great meal, and then maybe you get your after-dinner coffee and they put too much sugar in it, and like that ruins like your whole meal?
I don't know. Honestly, I wouldn't say that, and I'm a bit of a foodie, so I'll take that analogy.
That's why I use that analogy.
Yeah, I'm going to use it, and I'm going to say that you're going to a place with a phenomenal chef and a phenomenal sommelier, and you're expecting this amazing meal, and you find it's just a little oversalted.
Yeah.
That's my problem. And yes, the dessert probably kind of sucks, but it's just, I mean, the whole game felt off to me. It didn't feel like Mass Effect 2 to me, and that was my disappointment. So I mean, a lot of people have loved it. More power to you, and
Yeah, I mean, for me, like
whatever.
my opinion on it is like I liked pretty much everything until like we got back to Earth, and then from there it felt rushed and a little disappointing. But I thought a lot of the other beats were really great,
But I gotta say, it's a very bold list. I'm very I'm pleased, especially for the two the two surprise titles. Very pleased for Dishonored, and Assassin's Creed 3 is obviously something I've liked. The one thing that surprised me is Far Cry 3 didn't make that list, and it's got a better Metacritic right now, I think, than Assassin's Creed and Dishonored. It's at 92. I started playing it this week, and we'll go into it a little bit further. But that is, from what I'm getting so far, and from what I'm seeing from other things, is that it's a phenomenal game. And I'm wondering, when the Knights of the Old Republic, came out last year, that came out post VGAs, and so should we even be having VGAs in early December? Do you think to do a better, to do a better job and really take everything into 2012, there should be a January thing, as are the Oscars and the Golden Globes, etc.
There is a very specific cutoff date, so I'm a part of the editorial council, and they tell you when they send you like the very first sort of correspondence, like this is the date where we cut off. You can't consider any games after this date, but obviously make sure for next year that you take those into account for the following year's VGAs. So I think one year, like Epic Mickey kind of didn't make the cut. It came out like right before Christmas, and it didn't make it into the awards. But at least personally, as a part of the council, I do make a point to go back and look at what came out after that date the year before to make sure that I'm not overlooking something. But you're right. At that point, the game's kind of lost some steam. That's not the case with Far Cry, though. It did make it in under. But again, the game is coming out so late that maybe we had some experience playing it at game events or conventions or whatever. A lot of times you're just getting like a quick swatch of the game, and so it's hard to really, especially when you're talking about Game of the Year. It's such a lofty accolade that it's really hard to kind of base your opinion on Game of the Year based upon 45 minutes of playing the game at a trade show or whatever.
That is a valid
it's
point.
interesting that they chose though to release it so late.
I think
I thought it was going to get delayed for sure. I was surprised.
Well, I think it was smart. I think they were
I
smart.
understand the Call of Duty effect. You want to get away from that a little bit, but
it wasn't ready to come out obviously earlier in the year or earlier in the season, and it has a free run now. I mean, everybody's bought Call of Duty or Halo, so and yeah, I mean we're sidetracking away from the VGA topic. So
also we are coming back to Far Cry in a little bit, so maybe we should move on from here. We will be talking about Far Cry 3 extensively later in the show. From my perspective, I agree with you guys. I like seeing games like Journey or The Walking Dead being nominated. In all honesty, you know, every year people accuse the VGAs of being bought or whatever bullcrap that conspiracy theories that people have. So it's interesting to see that, you know, these two games have made it. Obviously, you don't have Call of Duty as a nominee. You don't have Halo as a nominee. Two biggest juggernauts in the industry from the two
neither
biggest
one of
publishers.
those. I mean, it's pretty surprising because I know like a lot of other people have been very, very high on Halo.
Yeah.
And so like the fact that it didn't make it into that cut is.
But I can justify seeing Journey and The Walking Dead on that list instead of Call of Duty or Halo 4. That to me personally were not, you know, they haven't reached the pinnacles that they're supposed to.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, again, I appreciate the games like that made the list. I don't think that they deserve to be on that list. I'm not a fan of The Walking Dead at all. I know, for whatever reason, it's become like a critical darling. I started playing it last weekend. I have a problem even calling it a game. It's like a point and click, like choose your own adventure book.
And that's honestly, that's great. I mean, you know, Day of the Tentacle, Sam and Max. Let's go back to Grim Fandango.
Yeah, I enjoyed those games like 20 years ago.
And they were awesome. And the fact that they've come back in this episodic format for a very reasonable price. I mean, it's been, you know, it was a bold move and a brave move. And I will go on a probably not very long. But
Telltale's been making these games for forever. I mean, it wasn't a brave or bold move. This is what they do.
I gotta say that this is probably the best Telltale game.
I'd agree with that. I'd agree with that by a mile. But
you know, he's a friend of mine. But Gary Whitta really wrote a phenomenal script. I mean, and that's the thing.
The writing's great. The voice acting's great. They do a good job with the cliffhangers between episodes to make sure you want to come back. But as far as calling it a video game, like to me, that's kind of a stretch at this day and age.
I would say it seems like an old school computer game. And what I will say is that and Journey have done some of the best jobs of getting emotions out of me. That's more than run and gun. Like, woohoo, we captured the flag, or I scored a goal or a touchdown or whatever. Some of the decisions in the first episode when you get to the farm, some of the decisions you have to make and the emotional feeling I get inside when I do those and I see either the payoff or the blowback is not something I have got. And this is where we have the conversation, are video games art? And anything that can evoke an emotion like Journey or The Walking Dead does stands to be video games as art more than Call of Duty or Halo or, you know, many of the other titles out there that don't evoke a wider range of emotions to me. It's a maturity in games that is actually really exciting.
No, I appreciate that as well, but I feel like that's just one very small facet of being a video game and being a piece of interactive media. Sure, it's a great story, and you're right, there's some tough decisions and some emotion in there, but you can't just discount the rest of the game. Like for Journey, for example, I love Journey, but it's a 3-hour game. Like, you can't just discount these other teams that have spent 3 years making a game that you can play for 60 or 70 hours and just say, oh, that work doesn't matter because I got 3 hours of something I really liked here. Like, I just don't think it's fair.
It's quality over quantity, though. I mean, you can have 60, and last year you had the winner being Skyrim, being the 120, 130-hour game. And, you know, if your game is good enough, it's going to stand the test of time. It's just like the sports analogy. If you're good enough, you're old enough to go and play, so, you know, play a sport. And I would say that if the game is good enough and delivers something that gets people into it and hooks them and makes the fans, then, you know, and it goes back to, you know, the conversation we had when we were talking about the Black Ops review, when you said, you know, what Greg Kasavin had told you about, you know, if a game sells really, really well and you've trashed it, well, there's a disconnect there. I think the fact that nobody has complained about the VGAs this year for the first time with regards to the nominations shows that the balance is there and the people are actually getting it. It's a wider range of games. They do run the gamut, and I think that's a great thing.
I don't disagree with that ideology at all. I mean, I feel like the Game of the Year award should be representative of the year as a whole, but I just don't think that those, particularly The Walking Dead, is up to scratch for a Game of the Year candidate. I just simply.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing. It's your opinion, and there's nothing wrong with that. Before anybody gets bananas, just like it's my opinion that Mass Effect 3 shouldn't be up there, and it's got all these great reviews, and that's why what we do is so much fun, because we can have these conversations before a show, during a show, after a show, at the pub at the Christmas party, and we this is what we do when we're not sitting here. We will go in the corridor. We'll have a little, we will have a little back and forth, and it'll be, you're fucking nuts, or you're fucking nuts, or whatever. And that's what we. That's
well,
why
the
we
other
love
part
this
of it
shit.
too is that if you look at I get really sick of bringing up Metacritic, because at this point Metacritic just seems completely something worth not even discussing anymore. The way reviews have been all over the board this year. But, I mean, if you do look at Metacritic for Walking Dead, none of the critics gave it amazing review scores. So all of a sudden, they're like, oh, before now it's like an 8 game, and now it's a Game of the Year candidate? It's like, at least be consistent. If you think it's a Game of the Year candidate now, why didn't you think that when you were reviewing the game?
Well, let me throw this out to you. As you said, the editors-in-chief, the board.
Right,
the
they didn't
board.
necessarily
And
review
they're not
the game.
necessarily the reviewers. I would say that there are probably half a dozen reviewers on various outlets that I would take personal issue with just on their reviewing style or criteria or whatever, where I disagree with them more often than not. I mean, you and I have disagreements over games. We also agree on a lot of games as well. So, I mean, I think that's where it's interesting that perhaps with Journey and again, The Walking Dead, you're looking at games that perhaps are a little more cerebral and a little more slower paced, and that might even appeal to the fact that a lot of the EICs, like you, are old.
Right.
Like me, are old.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's our, the people who've been playing games for 20, 30 years, who've gone through this and have, all right, yeah, Call of Duty looks great, Halo looks great, but it's, look at this. And it does, perhaps it's a nostalgia thing also with The Walking Dead, because we played the LucasArts adventures.
Right.
And before that, we got the Steve Jackson Warlock of Firetop Mountain books. And we would turn to page 36 to find that a 3-headed Throg has just stuck a rock.
That's honestly what it reminds me of, is like Choose Your Own Adventure books.
And honestly, I don't have a problem with that. I really don't. I mean, the way the characters react to you and the way you play, and just that, like I said, that feeling of, oh, am I going to, I like playing as a dick in so many games. This game, it feels wrong to be the arsehole. And when somebody dies, I feel accountable. And that is not something I get from many other games, to be honest with you.
Dishonored, I feel like, was another interesting pick. Why do you guys think that made it as one of the nominees?
New franchise, new series. Yeah, it was a brand new IP, and I'm sorry if I'm dominating again. I mean, because I went back and started playing Dishonored again this week before Far Cry came, to do for the recording, and I gotta say,
they just announced they're going to make a sequel. It is now officially a franchise for Bethesda,
which is great. I mean, it was a bold move at the end of the console cycle. You see everybody else, I think, with the exception of Ubisoft and Zombie U, really not putting out the new franchises. But I gotta say, there is something innately cool about the sneaking component, and then just chaining the blink teleports, dropping down behind somebody, choking them or killing them or whatever. And the way I'm playing it to maximize the chaos. So I am killing guards. Because I know that the more chaos I get, the more rats, the more plague there is. And then when I get to a certain level and unlock the control of the rats thing, I've got this friggin' army ready to go, and I'm going to be, the bastard again. But there is something just really good about it that, again, is perhaps not as cerebral, say, as The Walking Dead, but it's just something that rewards a little bit of patience and a little bit of forethought. And I think this is why games like Portal and Portal 2 have done so well, and are perhaps opening up people to these more cerebral games.
Yeah, I think it's the fact that it gives you all of those options. Like, there's not ever just like a single way to do something, and you can use those tools in ways that the developers don't even expect.
Yeah.
And I think that's really kind of I think what makes it really stand out. And then, it's got this really interesting art style that you can't even really put a finger on. It's like, is that kind of like a painting? But it's not cell-shaded in any way. It's, it's really different.
It's this
I don't like the art style in the game.
I do. I mean, I've said this before when we talked about it, that it reminded me of Half-Life 2. That big, that big city.
Wasn't there like some crossover with the artists?
Possibly. I mean, it's got that style that isn't hyper realistic. It's not quite a cartoon. It feels like a game. It does feel like a game as opposed to, I mean, and this is something I've always been really wary of, is the hyper realistic graphics that we will no doubt get down the line, where it's like you are shooting somebody in the face and it looks, it looks real. I like the comic booky kind of drawn, the drawn, not cell shaded as you said, but that sort of like artificial feel to it.
Patrick, what's your perspective on Dishonored?
I hadn't played it yet, but it's funny hearing about all this freedom and approach, because playing something like, Deus Ex Human Revolution, where it kind of does offer the same thing where, yeah, you can run the gun, you could stealth, but really it almost funnels you into a certain kind of play style in the end. And I hate it when open world games try to give you this freedom, but ultimately you're being punished for playing one way or the other.
Right.
Dishonored seems cool in that, you are able to kind of tweak it the way you want. But yeah, I mean, just seeing Ryan play, you seem to have a blast with it, and Daniel obviously has a high opinion of it. Hopefully I'll have the chance to play it sometime.
Yeah, to me, I think Dishonored is one of those games similar to The Walking Dead, where I feel like it does one thing very well, and in this case, it's something that I really appreciate, which is giving you multiple ways to solve things, a lot of latitude in how you actually play the game. But then it falls short for me in a lot of other areas. Like, I didn't find the story particularly compelling.
Right.
To me, I thought the game was just kind of bleak and dreary in general. Like, I don't know. Now, I'm actually on bonus round this week, and I kind of talk about it a little bit, so I don't want to kind of trump that right now. But it was one of those games that I never got excited to go home and play at night. I almost had like a sense of like dread of playing it. Like, it was just kind of very oppressive, and like it wasn't inviting to me. So a lot of great games that I play, it's like while I'm at work, I'm like, man, I can't wait to get home and get back to what I was doing. With that game, like, that never happened for me. I would eventually go home and play it, but it was usually after I got home and I sat around for a little bit. I'm like, what am I going to play? I should probably get back on Dishonored. It just, I don't know what it is. I mean, maybe that is one of those intangible things where it is purely up to taste or whatever. But again, I feel like it's one of those games that does one thing really well and kind of doesn't really nail everything else. And for me, Game of the Year games need to, one, give you a lot of value for what you're paying for, and it needs to have every part of the game handled excellently. And I feel like some of the nominees maybe for the VGAs this year don't do that. But I do agree with everybody that it's good that there are games like this. And I also wonder, too, if maybe the critics or the EICs weren't testing the process a little bit to be like, okay, let's see if I vote for Journey if like that ends up as like one of the nominees. Like,
well, look, I would say, I mean, I know a lot of the EICs, as you do. I mean, I worked with them on the PR side, and I follow a lot of them on Twitter, and I've got to say that of the ones that I know really well, this vibes. This does vibe in following their opinions on AC3, Dishonored, Mass Effect. I mean, they do have a view that's actually kind of works with the nomination. So I think it's a great thing. I really do. I mean, this is very genuinely exciting. And even though I sort of like sat and did my GTTV picks for who's going to win, I'm still like, I think it could go between two titles. There's two titles, and I'm
so
sure. So
let's just do that real quick. Who do you think is going to win, Marcus?
My two. Well, I don't want to
pick one. Don't say two.
Can I mean, I'm then forerunning the GTTV show next week.
Enough.
So I will say that as much as I love The Walking Dead,
well,
and
GTTV,
Journey,
you pick your pick. You don't say who you think is going to win.
Well, no. I thought I did both. Yeah, well, I will say that.
Don't give me your pick. Tell me who you think is going to win, which game you think is going to win.
I think Dishonored is going to win.
Okay. Patrick, what do you think?
So it's Dishonored, Mass Effect, Journey, Walking Dead,
and Assassin's Creed 3.
Probably Assassin's Creed.
Yeah. What about you, Blood?
I think people might go with Journey, because I think even though like it's a brief experience, I think that's the only really negative thing people can tangibly say about it.
What do you think happens if Journey does win? Because to me, I feel like it almost sets a bad precedent. Like, I don't want a bunch of 3-hour games. Like, I want big-ass games. And I don't mind paying $60 for a big-ass game I'm going to play for dozens and dozens of hours.
Well, for me, sometimes, like, I would play an indie game and I'd have more fun with that than I had, the entirety of playing multiplayer with another game that has been, dozens and dozens of hours.
Well,
I think this is the interesting point, is that, I mean, we've seen a lot of single-player games getting shorter and shorter. Dishonored is about 12 hours. Assassin's Creed obviously goes up the other end with all the side missions and everything. And I think it just comes down again to a case of quality over quantity. Do I think Journey's going to win? I don't think it's going to win, and the same reason as The Walking Dead, because they are, I mean, Journey obviously PS3 online specific, downloadable. They did release a box version, I think, a couple of weeks ago, but I just don't think that the larger audience is there really to vote for it. It would be great.
I think the box version of Walking Dead actually comes out in like a week or two.
It's GameStop exclusive, so it comes out post.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we get those facts straight for people who may be looking.
Yeah, that's a GameStop exclusive as well, which is really bizarre.
Is it?
Yeah. The voting, is this the vote? So the voting for the Game of the Year, is that done by the public or by?
No, it's done by the council as well.
By the council, yeah.
There's a couple categories that fans can vote on. They're like Viewers' Choice Awards or whatever.
I mean, I've been flip-flopping between Assassin's Creed and Dishonored, but I think they would go for Dishonored. It will blow my mind in such a good way if Journey did it. And yeah, like I said, do we go for 60-hour games that are crap, or 60-hour games lots of budget or whatever that aren't fulfilling, or do we go for this bite size? I mean, and I think that'll be a good barometer for the industry for the next couple of years, because God knows what some Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo have in store for us for next year, because I really don't know.
Well, for the last 6 months of next year, nobody knows what's coming out. I mean, honestly, there are really no games announced for the last 6 months of 2013. So, what the hell's going on there?
I'm seeing Call of Duty.
Well, of course.
Seeing Madden.
Other than the obvious ones, I'm saying.
I mean, the world's going to end.
Yeah, I guess it's all going to end on December 20th or whatever. Anyway, so
the Mayans.
We'll never get to play BioShock Infinite. Oh. So, Blood, did you actually make a pick, or did you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm going to go outside the box on everybody and say Mass Effect 3. I know there's a lot of, I knew you guys would all wrinkle your brows and be like, Shane's insane. And I'm not saying it's my pick for Game of the Year. I'm just saying that the empirical evidence is there. The vast majority of critics felt that it was the best game of the year, and so I'm just going to go with the numbers here, and I'm going to say Mass Effect 3.
It would be interesting because I think that there might even be a backlash against it, not necessarily for the ending, but for the total sow's ear that Electronic Arts has basically made of their year, where everything they've touched pretty much has turned to diarrhea.
My car is cool. Obviously, the car transforms into cool stuff.
All right, so next we're going to talk about 2 games in this segment, and then kind of talk about the overarching theme between both of them. The games are PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale and Sega's brand new kart racing game. What's that full convoluted title?
Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed.
Yeah, All-Stars in both of them.
Yeah. They're all All-Stars.
Yeah, and so the overarching topic we'll eventually get to is the use and/or abuse of sort of shoveling characters into games and creating this all-star cast. First, let's talk about Battle Royale. Do you think this game ever had a chance, really? Do you think people really gave it a chance? Because I remember we talked about it on the show before, and you were on talking about it.
Yeah.
In all honesty, I felt like you weren't giving it a chance because it was a clone of Smash Brothers. Do you think people had the ability to look at it just for what it is and not say, well, you're biting the idea from somebody else, so it automatically is a lesser game?
Well, at the time, I had actually played it, and my opinion obviously hasn't changed that much. But you know what? I did not go into it with a bias at all. I'm not against the idea of a mascot fighter. In fact, I love Smash Brothers.
Yeah.
And actually, I got a lot of criticism on the review for, people saying that, I hated the game because it wasn't Smash Brothers, or, I was.
Well, actually, in the review, I thought you did a very good job of explaining why the game wasn't up to scratch, and you weren't you didn't even use any verbiage that was like, it's not as good as Smash Brothers. That's not the angle that you took with the review, even.
Yeah, I mean, my bottom line with that game is that, it very obviously is going for a very specific style of fighting game. It's there's no illusions that this is going to be a Smash Brothers style game. I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I think that it went in a direction that inadvertently took away the intrinsic, charm of Smash Brothers. The ring outs, the stamina system, like the idea of the environment being an actual participant in battle, it being an obstacle. Like, it takes all of those and kind of tries to cram it into a, so-called competitive fighter. And it just doesn't work, it's water and oil. So that was my main gripe with it, not because it wasn't completely Smash Brothers.
Well, I also find it funny that, Sony and a lot of the Sony fans try to act like it isn't a Smash Brothers clone, which is ridiculous. It's very obviously their attempt to recreate that game.
Yeah.
But as a journalist, obviously, and you did a great job of this, you can't buy into that whole theory. You need to review the game for what it is.
Yeah.
But I do feel like there was just kind of this built-in, and not from you personally, just in general, just reading, message board, it just seemed like there was this built-in negativity towards it because, and look, I'm not a big fan of companies blatantly ripping off other companies' games. I hear that, but still, you have to give the game a chance, regardless of whether it's something else.
Yeah, and in my review, I even said that, it's a perfectly serviceable party game. Like, people are going to dig this if they're not expecting too much out of it.
Yeah.
But, I play a lot of fighting games. I play Street Fighter. I play Smash Brothers. I know what to expect from both of those games. And for them to have tried and kind of put the two in one place just didn't work out in the way that I would have, liked to see.
You know what I found with that game is that I had a god-awful time trying to keep track of my character.
Yeah, me too.
Tough.
Yeah.
I just couldn't do it.
I think one of the things is, for one, the characters are not all in the same art style, and you don't have these easy-to-read silhouettes and dominant colors like in Smash Brothers. You have a big brown Donkey Kong. You can kind of
Part of it
tell
too
the
might
difference.
be that those characters are more kind of ingrained in our minds.
Yeah.
Like we know what their silhouettes look like.
Yeah.
True.
Some of these
they're
characters brought back for this
they're
game are
designed that
like
way.
kind of niche.
Well,
Yeah,
a lot
it's
of
weird.
them are normal human proportions, and
I
it's
don't
a
know, though,
cool-looking
because
dude with short hair from far away. It's like
Yeah.
Smash Brothers has a
Or
lot
is
of
that?
characters nobody heard of until Smash Brothers.
Yeah, but
I
if
mean-
you look at their silhouettes, they're pretty.
But for the main cast, or just like the kind of filler characters, like
mean-
the items and stuff?
Can you call like Roy and Martha really filler characters? Or
But you know what? Those were the only characters that really looked just like humans. So
Right.
when I would play with those guys, it was very easy for me to pick out
even
those
Marth
guys.
versus Link, who is also a dude with a sword,
Right.
they look totally different. And Smash Brothers, I think, actually does use the silhouettes somewhere in the presentation. I wish
Yeah.
I
The other
could
thing too
think
is
of it.
Nintendo's characters generally have like one main color theme.
Yeah.
Link is always green, Kirby is always pink, and I think that also helps you kind of pick those guys out from all the chaos.
Yeah, and this is a total aside, but I think it's funny how the one thing that the game definitely falls flat on its face with is that it is kind of relying on this love of Sony and like a familiarity with the brand that really
Right.
isn't there for a lot of people.
For a lot of those characters.
Yeah, like I mean, exactly. Like with the silhouettes, like, oh, I'm the human guy, generic dude with the gun. Oh, there's like two of those guys. There's three
Yeah.
of those guys. And also like when you're on the Buzz level, and it's like, hey, which, game does this obscure resource come from? And you're trying to guess the answer. Like, I don't know.
I don't know.
And everyone puts it in
It's
the
kind
face
of
the pie.
embarrassing,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah, it's like, okay, it kind of tells you there that, okay. And like the last boss, Polygon Man, like who's going to remember that ad campaign?
Right.
Like, okay.
Nobody remembers
Yeah.
that. So let's talk about the actual fighting itself, because ultimately all the bells and whistles and the frills don't mean much if the actual fighting engine isn't worth a squat. Now, this game has kind of a weird mechanic in how you have to eliminate people, right?
Yeah, so they tried to. This is where the competitive part comes in, where you have to basically build up enough super meter, and the only way to kill someone isn't by knocking them out of the stage or upwards or whatever.
Doing enough damage, killing. There's no such
Yeah.
thing as damage.
Yeah, there's
essentially.
Yeah.
damage doesn't matter, which is another flaw actually. And the only way to kill someone is by using a super, basically. And the reason why damage doesn't matter is because you can hit someone as much as you want. But ultimately, the one thing that will do them in is by finishing them with a super. And to me, that is flawed in a couple ways. The biggest being that it almost makes it as if a character's total moveset doesn't matter. It's just you're looking at the supers that
Right.
really pull the weight of each character. And another thing is that there's no consequence to being hit. So you're never in fear of dying by being knocked off the stage, or you're never in fear of taking too much damage from a combo. Like combos don't matter except for
You
building
will
meter.
have your own meter decreased, which is
Yeah.
it keeps you from hurting other people, but it's just not quite the same as you don't ever really have a sense of danger like, oh shit, I'm in trouble. You're like, will you please stop beating on me? I need to get out there and build my meter. And then
it also turns
super.
into a case where once someone has a super, you just spend your time trying to avoid that character, right?
Yeah, exactly. And another thing too is that it tries to do things in a way that come off as a competitive fighter where we have combos, you have to time your hits together so you can get these cool strings out. But at the same time, like, look at it, you're looking at a concept in a one-on-one fighter in a 4-player free-for-all. Like, when are you going to get opportunities to actually practice these competitive mechanics that are designed for a different style of game?
It works pretty well in training mode, and then you get out into the actual fight, and you're like, all right, I'm going to use
like,
this stuff. And you're
there's
like,
no way.
whoa, wait a minute.
I kid
where
you
am
not.
my character? What's happening?
I kid
Did
you
I just
not.
get
Like,
hit from behind?
I was in training mode with that game for a week before I even started playing a match.
That's typical.
That's what you do.
Fighting game review.
That's how you
what I
play
do.
a fighting game.
It's what I do. So I would pull off like these 150 AP combos, which are great. Like you could fill up close to or a full bar and do a super right afterwards. And like I would show Justin all these cool combos, but very rarely would I actually be able to do them.
Because it's just too much chaos.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where I think it fails and where Smash Brothers succeeds, because Smash Brothers celebrates the chaos.
Yeah, it does.
It doesn't try to make any illusions about, well, you might be able to do this or do that. It gives you all these crazy tools to play with, with the Smash Balls and the weapons and whatnot, and it just makes it so that you're having fun even if you're kind of caught in the melee.
It also feels completely unpredictable, Smash Brothers. And I feel like maybe that's an element in this game that kind of has gone away, especially when, like you said, you can't just lose by taking damage.
Yeah.
Like, someone has to do a super. So to me, that takes all the element of surprise out of the game. And the other part is the ring outs. The ring outs to me are a huge deal.
Yeah,
because in Smash Brothers, those are some of the most fun moments.
Exactly.
You're like, oh my god, am I going to make it back? And then you're like, I'm going to make it. And then some dude does the edge sweep. And you're like, no! Like that's a big part of the game.
The survival element of Smash Brothers is what makes it for me.
Yeah.
Because it's not just you against someone, but it's you against the environment. It's a game you play with yourself, like, how can I stay on this platform using my moves?
So it looks like Seth Killian coming over from Capcom, too little, too late, maybe.
I mean, he did come over when that game was practically done already.
Right.
I mean, it was only 2 months away, and then they delayed it again.
Yeah.
So.
It kind of feels like we're hating on the game completely. It's
Right.
not.
No.
I mean, it's a mindlessly
I can
fun
enjoy
game.
it a little bit, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's you can't avoid looking at it with scrutiny. I think
I think Patrick nailed it, though. It's a good party game. Like, you could bust it out with a party with people who are maybe casual players. They're probably going to have fun with it. But if you're talking about like competitive players who take fighting games very seriously, there's really not enough meat on the bone there, right?
Yeah, and if you're looking at it as a celebration of the Sony franchise, it doesn't even do that. I mean, one thing that Brawl did, which was completely fluff, but again, a ton of people enjoyed it, was with the crazy story mode, seeing all these characters interact with one another. Even that, it doesn't really fully deliver because the story mode.
Well, it didn't even really try, right?
It's really half-assed. Like honestly, there's no like cool story mode. There's just like a bunch of still frames and then maybe like one rival cutscene. But even that, it doesn't feel like a celebration of the brand, which is what makes Nintendo and Smash Brothers work.
So you wouldn't recommend this to serious fighting game players, right? Or would you?
I mean, I wouldn't. There was a demo. I don't know if it's up right now. Is the demo up?
I don't know if it's still available.
Yeah,
or
maybe gone by now.
Okay, anyway, cut that out.
PlayStation Plus beta, but.
I mean, if you're a competitive fighting game player, I think you already know what to expect out of this game. But if you're looking for a cool multiplayer fighter that you can play on the couch with just people that are around.
Try Power Stone 2.
But you know what? Something I would have been interested with was I heard and I read online that this was originally supposed to be developed by Naughty Dog.
Wow.
So I would have loved to see what their take was.
Naughty Dog making a fighting game.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, I mean, the new studio had never made a game before, so it couldn't be any worse, right?
Yeah.
You'd think.
Well, oh well, what could have been.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to Sega All-Star Kart Racing Wipeout Super.
Danica Patrick.
Now, I have to say, this may be one of the most pleasant surprises of Q4. This game is awesome.
Yeah, I had a hunch. So I don't know why, but I
think
had a
the
hunch.
I
last-
haven't played a great Sega game.
Yeah.
I can't remember how
Actually,
long. I don't know
this
how
one-
you had a hunch.
This one I had a bias.
Yeah.
This one I had a bias.
Well, but also not only a great Sega game, but I mean, like, when was the last time we had like a kart racer that could actually like hold a candle to Mario Kart?
Yeah.
I mean, people kind of abandoned it for a while, and then this year, like, we got a bunch of them, and
F1 All Stars.
yeah, F1 All Stars was better than Little Big Planet, but still not great, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, they have, you know, the mascots they have in the game. Actually, you know, it's not perfect. Everyone can complain, but a pretty cool bunch of guys. Some cool old school choices, some cool throwbacks like the Golden Axe stage and a Golden Axe theme. It's cool. It's filled with lava. If you're looking for an excuse to nerd out over Sega stuff, they've got plenty of it in there. They really
So
covered
they were
that
really
part.
smart with how they used
They
all
were,
the
you know,
properties.
they did pretty well.
I don't get that excited about the characters so much, but some of these levels, like, I did not expect that Afterburner level.
Oh, the Afterburner
it's
level's
so
awesome.
cool. They're like going on and off of freaking aircraft carriers and all these jets flying by and everything.
They're saying Ryu's maybe some DLC.
Oh yeah, bro. So.
Maybe
It's
he drives a
always-
forklift.
The Sonic Casino level was giving me like F-Zero GX flashbacks. I don't know if they have like
the
people
game
that
has,
came over
like
from
the
that.
F-Zero games, it has a really good sense of speed. Stuff especially when you're a car, you feel like you're going really fast, and the drifting just.
Now wait a
has
minute. I
great
mean,
loose
F-Zero
feel.
GX was made by Sega. Did the same team make this game?
You know, it's kind of a
Those
composite
teams
team.
have kind of dissolved, and like I don't know where these guys
There's some
are
Blur
from.
people, some people from various other racing games. I mean, it's kind of you'd have to go look at a staff list. But I
Right.
mean, there
Yeah.
definitely some talented people from proven studios here, and you know they've done some cool stuff. The game just has a really cool feel.
How's the online play?
It worked pretty
I
well.
see that.
It's pretty much, you know, when we review the games,
up.
I'm like, I'm gonna have to get online and test this out.
Like
But
how many
really,
people could race at a time?
I think at least 8, maybe it's 12. You know,
Wow.
I would probably need to look at something, but you know, you feel like there are people in a race, you can interact with them, you can.
You
know.
feel like there are people in the race?
I mean, there are enough people.
does
There are
that
enough. Okay,
mean?
let me rephrase that. There are enough people to where you will constantly have someone behind you or in
Good,
front
good.
of you, changing position, shooting power ups. So
That doesn't have like the cool like autolog stuff like most racing games do to keep you engaged with it and keep going
I
back.
think
and
it's not really
Yeah,
about
I
that.
don't-
You can do time attacks or try to set lap records on specific tracks. So it's more
are
like
there
a
ghosts
traditional
then if you go back and try to beat them?
leaderboard type thing. You know,
Are there ghosts so you can go back and race against someone's ghost if you
there are
want?
certainly staff ghosts you can
Yeah.
race against. They have a pretty good set of features. It's not maybe quite where, you know, like a Need for Speed would be or something. It is kind of a kart game. It is a little more, you know.
The career is kind of different though, like the whole like, branching progression.
Yeah, they actually have a really nice career. You unlock various paths. There are different types of events. There are mini games like chasing a giant tank, and you try to hit it with kind of dumbfire missiles that kind of test your, you know, your aiming and dodging
While you're
abilities.
driving, yeah.
There's the boost races where you have to, the timer ticks down if you're not boosting at all times. So you're really going fast the whole time trying to find the ideal line, take advantage of the boost off the drift, hit the pads. There's a lot of cool stuff in it. I think I've heard some people say that the game is maybe a little too hard.
Really?
Some of the
I
reviews-
found it hard to get in the
It is
first
pretty
place.
hard
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
gold
That's
level.
good.
But yeah, I mean, you know, I think if you're looking, you want some kind of challenge.
Definitely.
You don't want to just stumble through and, you know, get the blue shell and go in.
Which is
"Oh,
basically what Mario Kart
guess I-
is. Like, you
I guess
know,
I made
when I
it."
play a Mario Kart
Lucky
game for
me.
review, I basically finish first almost every single race and by like half a lap. So I have no problem with getting some more challenge in these types of games. What is the coolest power up in the entire game, in your opinions?
I haven't played it for that long.
I
only
think a
played couple
well
hours.
done. They have a really good take on the blue shell that I think is worth mentioning. It's the item that attacks the first place or goes ahead of the pack is actually like a swarm of giant hornets. So it's possible to dodge. And if you're in first place or you're the first like 3 or 4 guys, if you don't dodge it, you're going to certainly lose some time. If you do weave your way through, you'll probably lose a few seconds because you have to slow down and navigate it.
Right.
But if you're good, you're not going to just get
You're not
smacked
doomed.
and have the second place guy go, heel. Oh, I guess,
Or the
I guess
second,
I'm
third,
going in
and
now.
fourth place guy.
Yeah, so what happens is the more people dodge it, the more people have to deal with it. So you
Right.
put that out and it slows down the front, but it doesn't totally just, you know, smack a guy while
I
he's
like that
right
idea.
after he hit off a jump pad and you
I kind of
totally
like
ruin his race.
the hot rod thing, where it's like it gives you a boost and then at
Yeah,
the
you have
end
a boost
you
and you
explode
can
around
time
it.
an
Yeah.
explosion. But if you boost too long and putters out, then you kind of take a
You
speed
lose
hit
speed?
yourself. Yeah.
So wait, you boost, and then if you get
It gets hotter and hotter and hotter, and then like whenever you feel like you're at the right place or you're close to another guy, it like puts out like a ring of fire to attack a guy next to you.
Oh, cool. So you guys would recommend this game to just about anyone. This is enjoyable for anyone. You don't have to be a Sega fan either, right? It's just a great kart racing game.
Yeah, you don't have to, but I think if you do remember those old games, like you're gonna, definitely like especially the
Get a little more out
afterburner
of it.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that the crazy taxi guy has a name, I didn't know.
I never knew
Not
that
aware of
either.
that.
All right, so let's get to the bigger discussion, which is what seems to be happening all the time now with these mashups of characters. Maybe it doesn't happen as often as we think, and honestly, I don't know if the probability of it happening a whole lot in the future is all that great. I never would have guessed Sony, if you talked to me 2.5 years ago, I would never guess Sony had enough properties to put together a fighting game that featured nothing but an all-star cast. Who else do you think could do something like
I would
this?
also kind of
Capcom, maybe?
I would also kind of count crossover fighting games like Street Fighter Cross Tekken, and a lot of Street Fighter games have come from, a lot of Street Fighter characters have come from different series and different things. So these companies have a lot of things put together.
Konami's tried it with YY Racing and stuff, right? And they had their Smash Brothers clone.
Yeah,
that
there's
only
been a
came out in
Konami
Japan.
Smash type game.
Square Enix, well, when they were just Squaresoft.
Yeah, Square would always, they would throw guest characters. Air Guys is a weird 3D fighting game. They threw some Final Fantasy characters in it. So it's always a way to...
A Microsoft one would be really weird, right? Like Master Chief.
Master Chief
That would
was in
be
a
worse
Dead
than Sony's, definitely.
Oh, he was in Dead or Alive 4, wasn't it? Or it wasn't
Right.
Master Chief, it was a female Spartan.
Right.
Yeah, but like
designation.
Master Chief versus what? Some guy from Fable versus
Steve Ballmer.
Marcus Phoenix.
Yeah. It
Who
would
else
be a
can we get
shooter.
in there?
Microsoft would be a shooter, probably.
Oh, we totally forgot to mention that Danica Patrick is in Sonic All-Stars Racing
they do have
Transform.
some
That makes
weird-
no sense
Yeah.
whatsoever.
Wreck-It Ralph makes a little more sense, although I think the
That's
girl-
definitely a money play there.
Yeah, I
Put
think there's
Wreck-It
another
Ralph in.
character in that movie that's from, actually she's in a kart racing game in the movie. Maybe that would have made more sense.
Yeah,
but Wreck-It
yeah.
Ralph's like, hey, I have a truck, it wrecks things.
But at
I have
least
a
he
wrecking
has
ball.
something to do with video games. Danica
Yeah.
Patrick.
Well, licensing stuff. They're just whatever they can fit in there and try to get, whatever deals they can make.
She has a Hot Wheels car too.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Great.
it's got 6
Two
wheels.
licenses for the price of
All in one, yeah.
6 wheels, pretty cool.
So what do you guys think should be next? Capcom, maybe?
I heard that they actually did try to pitch an all Capcom game. The
Yeah.
US side did, but I guess Capcom Japan wasn't having it. I think I'd love to see that though. I think that'd be a pretty interesting thing.
Definitely. But there aren't that many publishers that really have the cachet to pull off something like this. I would say Sony probably didn't have the cachet to pull it off, and it did it
Nintendo
anyway.
has that.
Yeah.
They've, they basically all the first party stuff. It's all pretty much theirs.
Yeah.
So most other consoles or whatever or companies, they have a kind of a narrower set of things. They have other people that own the rights to things. They publish it. So.
Yeah, and like more than anything, for it to work, like the fans need to like love the franchise to begin with. So.
Yeah.
Disney.
Yeah, I wonder if mascots have they're not as important.
They don't
as
really
used to
exist
be.
anymore.
Most of the guys in, in Sega All-Stars Racing is like, hey man, you want to come out of retirement, do a car racing game?
I'm not doing anything
I
else.
guess so. My calendar's kind of open.
Yeah, you're right, though. And actually, one of the guys on Bonus Round this weekend makes a point about how mascots have just kind of gone away in video games. And a lot of that is because the platformer, which typically was the vehicle to deliver the mascot, is kind of, gone away as well. We don't see a lot of platformers anymore.
And games aren't really that cute anymore. No cool little sprite graphics. We all have like dudes with guns.
Yeah, there's really not a lot of new icons that are created. Think about a game like Dishonored, for example. Like, what icon do you draw out of that?
Yeah, well, that guy could possibly cut it in PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale. Dude with a mask.
Right.
I'm Masked Dude. You remember me, don't you? Like 20 years from now.
Don't you?
That iconic mask?
But like think about that too. Like what if they like put like the Journey character as DLC? Like what would he do?
Yeah.
Like he's
A lot of-
iconic. He has
lot
a
of
great
whistling.
silhouette, but then like, he jumps.
Yeah.
Bring me what has been lost, and we'll talk.
All right, so now we're going to finally talk about Far Cry 3. I know we briefly touched on it at the beginning of the show. Marcus is back. Justin is out.
Woo, I'm back.
Far Cry 3, I always kind of had a feeling about this game that it was going to be pretty flippin' awesome, only because it was so different from all the other shooters coming out. It was an open world game. I did enjoy the prior Far Cries, but I always felt like they kind of ultimately fell short in a lot of ways, whether it was the story or things just kind of fizzled out after like 10 hours, and I felt like they would drag on after that.
Or malaria.
So, Blood, you obviously you reviewed the game for GT. What is the one thing that sets this game apart more than all the other shooters this year?
I think it is kind of that openness, you know, and it's this balance between the openness and the story, because the story, you know, it's almost like Skyrim, to where like you could probably play through that story and get through it in, you know, 8 or 10 hours.
Yeah.
But, you know, as soon as you get past your tutorial, and it just opens up for you to go and do whatever you want, you know, and it's funny because there are a lot more. I mean, it feels like Assassin's Creed in a lot of ways, because you have, you know, this kind of like fog of war over the map, and there's a radio tower in that area, and so you climb up the radio tower, and every radio tower is kind of like a puzzle. It's like a platforming puzzle. You have to figure out where the handholds are and how to get to the top of the tower, and then you activate it, or actually you deactivate a scrambler that's on it, and that opens up that section of the map so you can see where everything is. Gives you some extra guns for free.
Now, does it
in the
give
shop.
you locations of enemies as well? Or just
no, I mean, it's a
locations?
huge chunk of map.
Okay.
So.
But the enemies do show up on your mini map as the cars are sort of like driving by you. Or well, actually, you see a car driving by on your mini map. You can't tell if it's a bad guy until you make it a visual contact, and then they'll turn red.
Yeah. So, and there's a couple of quests that unlocks as well, but most of it then after that you have the outposts, which are kind of like the assassins' dens or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, and so the outposts to me are like one of the most fun parts of the game, because every one of them is, you know, constructed differently. It's in a different set of terrain, and so you kind of you go up to the outpost and you scout it out and you tag your targets. Then you figure out, okay, how am I going to, you know, work
Attack
with these
this.
guys
Yeah.
and take them out. You know, and stealth is a much bigger part of the game. I really like the way the stealth system works, because if a guy has a line of sight on you, there's like this little arc above his head that'll fill up as he gets closer to like being alerted. Mm-hmm. And there are also these nice little like just sharp sound effects, you know, so that if you don't see it, you know, it's like, okay, you're about to get spotted.
Yeah.
So, you know, you can go in there and you can just, you know, sneak up behind guys and stab them, or you can take out the alarm and like plant some mines so that when the guy goes to the alarm, he gets blown up.
Yeah.
Just a lot of different ways, and each outpost is kind of you know, a different tactical situation. And once you've cleared it, then, you know, that clears a good section of territory that's now you can go through without, you know, having to worry about random patrols. And it also unlocks a bunch of side quests and races and things like that to go around and fiddle with.
Now, can you play this game run and gun if you want to? Because it's one of the demos I played at a trade show. I just ran. It was basically one of those. Like, I was going into the fort and I just got annihilated. Like, guys were coming out of like huts all over the place. And one thing I did like is it is kind of like 360-degree gameplay. Mm-hmm. A lot of shooters today, it's like just keep going forward, just look forward. Right. I felt like this game, like you really had to be aware of every angle of where enemies could be coming from.
Especially if you don't disable an alarm, it can be pretty tough, because then they start calling in backup and guys keep streaming in on Jeeps and things like that.
That's where the crafting comes in, though. If you want to play run and gun, get your crafting done. And this is one of the things that you start off, you got one weapon. You're allowed to carry one gun. That's it. You can buy lots of others and they'll be stored for you, but you've only got that one frigging gun, X amount minimum ammo. You can only carry a certain amount of loot in your backpack and a certain amount of cash in your wallet. So the skinning lets you unlock stuff. You unskin boars, you skin boars, goats, etc. But then you can build additional holsters, ammo packs, a bigger wallet, a bigger loot sack. So if you want to go in and run and gun, make sure that you have the biggest possible ammo carrier. You have 4 different weapons. You're stocked up on your C4, because they will come out, and they are pretty smart. They will look for you. They will hunt you down.
Is the ammo in short supply in this game? Is this one of those games where you're like, oh, I got one shotgun shell and I need to be...
No, it's not that bad. One thing that does kind of bug me a little bit about the crafting system. It's completely sequential.
Okay.
So if you do, say, get like some rare skin that's needed for like the top level holster, but you haven't gotten the 3rd level holster, you can't craft that top level holster. You have to like do each one
that's kind of lame.
and hunt down all the animals.
Well,
in
it's
sequence.
just power-ups. I mean, it's basically just the next level of power-up. I mean, that's just, unfortunately, that's just the way it is when you're unlocking your tattoos, which are your special powers, your skills. You know, you can't unlock just any one. You still have that little trail to follow, you know, to follow, unlock one to unlock 3 or 4 different options and then unlock something else. And I don't really have too much of an issue with that. I mean, I've just loved, I mean, you know, I've got through the first couple of missions, but just wandering around, practicing on the boars. I mean, because you know the weapons, and I'm playing on PC, and I gotta say it plays as well with a controller as it does with a keyboard and mouse on PC.
Really?
Which is really impressive.
How's that possible?
It does. It just reacts really, really well, and you know, so I've tried them both. But you know, just even in the beginning, you feel like such a wuss. This character is a total crybaby wuss.
Yeah.
And then
Well, he's like a rich kid, right?
Yeah.
and then they start. Then you know, crazy shit happens. Family, brothers, friends, whatever, they all get kidnapped. This is the story to rescue them. But then all of a sudden you start, you know, he ends up getting a gun, having to take some shots, having to do this and that. And as he progresses, and I'm only, like I said, I'm on the early curve of it, it does feel great. It feels like he's growing. The character is actually well written and not too annoying so far.
He takes lots of drugs, right?
There
You know what? It's overplayed.
Is it? It's not that big a deal?
There are some hallucination sequences, but yeah, the drugs and the nudity are way overplayed. Because I think they're like maybe...
It's
like,
in every trailer.
Yeah, yeah. Like there's like one scene of nudity that's kind of repeated in a hallucination, and then like the drugs, it's just there's a lot of different hallucinations that happen, but there are like different reasons that they happen. Like the one that you've done is sort of like an accident. You're just going through this cave.
Yeah.
You know what?
It's a pseudo accident because it's obviously you just trip a trigger.
And then this other set of drugs is just sort of like it's a flashback. It takes you back to the events that happened and shows you how they got stuck in this situation.
You know what really seems overplayed to me? I haven't played the game, just by watching the trailers and all the stuff that's come out. The bad guy.
Yeah, I agree.
Seems really,
they overuse
really
that guy.
overplayed.
If I have to hear, do you know the definition of insanity? Like one more time, it's
that's just like
I don't care what the definition is.
That's just one scene in the middle of the game. And
they use that in every trailer.
Yeah, by the time you get there, it makes sense.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because like you have survived so many crazy
and you're like,
situations.
in fact, I do.
But the thing I'm enjoying, I mean, just even from unlocking that first tower is, all right, do I have to schlep all the way down? No, there's a friggin' zip line here. Whoosh! Which is just a great feeling. And then, when you unlock some of the beach stuff, oh, look at that. There's the little jet skis or the hang glider. The one thing I will say that is kind of...
Is there fast travel in the game?
Yeah.
Okay.
The outposts are also fast travel.
Okay.
But with some of the stuff, it's actually just way more fun to either sneak through, especially if you're trying to collect stuff for the crafting. I was saying that. I mean, one of my first experiences of sneaking around, I was sneaking around, had my one gun, I'd fully ammoed up, but the enemy patrol came past, and I'm like, yes, sorted, no problem. I hid from them. And a snake attacks me out of nowhere, and it made me jump. Or you're wandering through, and you'll come across a Komodo dragon, and it will hiss at you and it'll charge you, and you'll shoot it. But then 4 others will come as soon as they hear the hiss. Same with packs of wild dogs.
Yeah. I saw a pack of wild dogs.
I hate fighting animals in video games.
I saw a pack of wild dogs.
Erratic.
There was like a roadblock of pirates. This pack of wild dogs came through and took out like all but one of the pirates. I just like walked up to
awesome.
the trees. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, you can literally run it. You can run through, and the dogs or whoever will chasing you. They will basically come after some. They will attack whoever is.
I wish there was some kind of bait though, because it's one thing when they have an animal in the cage and you just let it out and it takes out whoever's there, but there'll be times where like there'll be an outpost here and there'll be a leopard over here and like trying to figure out how to get the leopard into the outpost.
You want some pheromone spray
like
or
light the grass on fire,
do
chase him over there. Yeah, so some kind of like, let's put a slab of meat here, see if he follows it.
The one thing that did, like I said, didn't really float my boat was actually just the car driving. It felt a little loose. and I know you're driving a bunch of clapped out old cars that are on this.
You're driving through the dirt.
Yeah, you're driving through the dirt and everything. It's just, I mean, I was expecting a little more, sort of like, if they don't, it's like they've got over power steering.
Yeah.
As opposed to, something with a bit of fight to it. It's like, okay, I'm just going around in circles because I'm just really just tapping it too easy. And you're the driving guy, but for me, those car things just felt a little bit annoying. But like
I got a lot of flack for complaining about navigation. Because you don't have, you just have this like off in the distance waypoint.
Yeah.
And the roads and terrain are so windy and hilly. It's like, can you at least like do the Red Dead thing and like show me the best road to get there?
I don't think that's a problem because again, the place is so big. They want you to explore, and the trials.
I guess because I'm a natural explorer and I'm going to do that anyways. Like if I want to get there, I just want to know a decent route to get there, especially if it's way on the other side of the map.
But just coming across some of the trials that you do, you'll come across this rock with an inscription on a wall, and it's got a little set of high scores indented in it, and it'll be, kill a bunch of poachers.
Oh yeah.
And
the trials are fun.
Yeah, the trials are fun because you're killing these guys trying to get the certain amount of experience points.
Did you find the one where you just drive over people?
No, I haven't got to that one yet. But the thing I liked was that there were these barrels, and I shot a barrel, and boom, I get an extra 10 seconds of time. Yeah. And it does pull you out of the game a little bit, and it's funny and silly, but it's a great way of just getting those experience points up, because when you do things like unlock just the overhead kill where you're standing above somebody, and you're down, and boom, knife in the back of the neck. It's really satisfying.
It's kind of a moot point because obviously the team does it well and the series has roots in this kind of setting, but I kind of wish that it hadn't gone with the island because one thing I liked about Far Cry 2 was that, it took you to a whole different place with Africa, and it also kind of laid a bunch of different mechanics that tied into that. Of course there's the malaria joke, but it does a bunch of other cool stuff too. I liked Skyrim because it took you completely out of the forests.
Well, you went everywhere in Skyrim.
Yeah.
I mean, the environments in that game and just run the gamut.
Yeah, but like it was predominantly, that very like Nordic, northern kind of feel. So I would have liked to see them maybe try a different kind of environmental palette with 3, but obviously they did it well.
Yeah, I mean, I do wish they had like a little bit more variety in terrain.
I mean, when you set a game on a desert island, like all you're gonna get is palm trees and high grass. I mean, that's all there is. So
the forests are really dense. I mean, the underwater caves are really cool, and I can totally see your point. I think perhaps I would like to think that they've gone the route of, let's finally get the gameplay down pat. Yeah. Let's get all the components in place so that for the next one, we know we've got that foundation, and yes, we can take it to Switzerland or wherever, or the Appalachians, and you can have different environments. But they had to get the gameplay right because the first 2 games they've been very uneven.
They have,
yeah.
And I think that's what's been holding Far Cry back.
I think the other thing too that we gotta talk about is the acting and the way they like portrayed the characters. Like, there's just this uncanny way of like the way characters like look you in the eye and talk to you, and you feel like you're really like
making a connection with them.
Yeah, you're really connecting to them, and they do a really good job with that.
We were talking about the Doctor, and the Doctor you run into.
Oh,
and you think he's going to be a total stereotype of just bad acting, but just from that, once you complete that first mission and you get that with him and you get that little payoff, I know, I mean, I'm nowhere near where Bloodworth, he went through the entire game, but I know this Doctor's got some psychological damage, and he's going to do something further down the line with the friend that's been rescued, and he's thinking she's somebody else. And I'm like, I'm getting that hint already that it's like, I'm going to have to come back and keep an eye on you, you druggy bastard.
Now, we got to move on because we're running out of time. And for a lot of people, when they decide whether they're going to rent or buy a shooter, a lot of that hinges on multiplayer content, co-op content. Can you talk a little bit about the stuff that you get beyond the campaign?
Yeah, it's pretty much bullcrap.
Yeah.
The multiplayer I'm okay with. It's kind of just, it's essentially just the Call of Duty light. It's like you get points and then you can have like the support abilities like poisonous gas and things like that, and they're kind of control point oriented. And so it's...
How many different mode, like game types are there for multiplayer?
I think it's just like 4 or something like that. But the co-op is where just like, I never played a co-op match that went like 100% like smoothly. Like they were like...
I know, and just, for full disclosure, I know you had a heck of a time trying to get multiplayer in for this review. It was really tough.
Yeah, I wasted about 12 hours sitting in lobbies
We
where
actually
people weren't showing up.
we recorded an episode of Annoyed Gamer with him in the background trying to capture him.
Yeah. But yeah, the co-op, was super buggy. There were times where the guy I was playing with had like completely lost picture. There were times where he stopped being able to hear me or any other audio. There was a time when we got to the next checkpoint, but the map didn't update. So when we went where we were supposed to go, it said that we were going outside of the map. And so then we went back to where the map showed was the right place, and then it updated, and then we really were outside.
And that was
Now,
all
we put the cart before the horse here a little bit. We haven't really explained how the co-op works. Does it have like cinemas? Is there a separate story outside the campaign? And
so the co-op it's essentially like a separate mini campaign, but it's not open world at all. It's
there's a lot of like defend this bridge, blow this bridge up.
Yeah, it's sort of
stuff.
like one arena leads to another arena sort of thing. So you go in and it's like, okay, you have to repair the train and then wait for it to go down the tracks so that you can move on to the next area. And then every chapter has like a competitive section. So like who can get the most points in a sniper competition.
Yeah.
Or there's like even kind of like an on rails section. But again, like everything that you like about the single player game, all the openness, all the options, like it's not there. Like you have a standard like multiplayer like
Sweet.
shoot gun loadout.
Yeah.
And AI is freaking awful. Like there's times where like you can like get some stealth kills, and you can just like walk up into a guy's face and stab him in the neck. But as soon as like everyone's on alert, then that's it. Like you can't get away from them, and then it's just like kill waves of guys, and you have snipers spawning behind you and all of that kind of thing. So it's the co-op especially is like really disappointing compared to the single player game.
Marcus, you had something to add?
Yeah, you play. You play, you suck. Horrible. I mean, again, playing on the PC, and you have to boot up Uplay to get in. It says their DRM, and it says launch the game from Uplay. So I click on the play button, and literally, and I've told you guys the story before we recorded, 5 minutes later, I'm still sitting in front of the PC wondering when the game is going to run. And so I can do Control-Alt-Delete, see if the executable's running. No, it's not. So I literally have to go back and re-click the Far Cry 3 desktop icon, because even though it says the game is running in Uplay, I don't know what it's done, but it's not firing it up. And
when it launches Uplay, and then you have to launch it again from inside of Uplay.
But that's what I was doing. I would launch and then it wouldn't go start up. So I had to go back to the desktop to click on the Far Cry 3 icon, which I'd clicked on in the first place to open Uplay. Yeah. So it seems superfluous. I know everybody wants their own bite of the friggin' cherry with Origin and Uplay and everything, but for God's sake, just go to Steam.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it spoils it. It really does. But I got to say, I am so surprised by this game. Pleasantly surprised. It's replaced Borderlands 2 as my most enjoyable shooter.
Wow.
Really?
And that's only a couple of hours in, because I can see the potential. I can see it every time I unlock something. And again, playing on the PC and having just watched the 360 version, it's night and day. The draw distance, watching it spin around and everything.
I'm definitely going to play it on PC, no doubt about it. So I think you answered the question already. The last question is, would you buy it?
I would definitely say buy this on the PC version. Don't worry about multiplayer or co-op. I don't think they are needed. The game is certainly big enough. You said to me yourself that you completed it after about 25 hours.
I feel like the last act is a little bit weaker. I mean, I don't want to go into because of spoilers, but I feel like they kind of lose your motivation at the end, and then the ending is kind of out of left field.
But there's still
otherwise, the open world and everything is great.
And you were saying there's a lot of the island that you still didn't get to explore, with a lot more challenges, and to unlock every single one of those tattoos.
A lot of game here.
Yeah.
Worth the $60, Blood? In your opinion?
Yep. Yeah, I think so. And can I say, well done, Ubisoft, for literally.
What a year!
Yeah, between them and Bethesda, I think that they've basically come out and really saved Q4.
Well, even Zombie U, I mean, it's kind of one of those polarizing games, but it is pretty fun, and at least it's unique, and it is a new IP. Like, Ubi has had a pretty darn good year.
They've had one of their best years. Now, if only they could get rid of Uplay, they'll be really in good stead.
You want to work for me, kid? You have to follow my rules.
All right, so that does it for episode 230, stinking 5. Holy cow, I can't believe we've done that many episodes of anything here on Game Trailers. Just a reminder, don't forget Spike Video Game Awards next Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. We will have a show next Friday, but obviously that may be on before you even watch Invisible Walls. So make sure you check it out. Some big stuff, some big giveaways next week as well. Make sure you tune in. We got some stuff to give you guys. I may actually raid my personal cache of swag to do some giveaways for the holidays for you guys, our most dedicated GT users. So make sure you watch the show the next couple of weeks. I'm going to be giving out some pretty cool stuff that I've been given over the last year or so. So anyway.
Signed Call of Duty underpants.
So anyway, that's it for this week's show. Everybody have an awesome weekend. We'll see you next week. Invisible Walls is up and out.
See this and other GT shows and game reviews on the GT Originals iOS app, available now on the App Store.